Welcome to the Focus Lounge podcast. I'm your host, Rene Diane, and I would like to thank you for following my journey. Joining us for this episode will be life coach and author Jessica C. Johnson. We look forward to seeing you in the lounge. Welcome to the Focus Lounge podcast. I'm your host, Rene Diane, and today I have a special guest with me, my daughter, Jessica Johnson. Welcome.
Thank you.
Last week we were talking about being able to face the mirror. And after reading your book, my next topic is there's no need to apologize for who you are.
Right.
And so in chapter 10 of your book, you actually had something very similar to today's topic. So can you tell the people about yourself?
Yes, so once again, my name is Jessica Johnson. I am an author, of course. I am a life coach, and so as she stated, I talk in chapter 10 about not being apologetic, about being who you are, about your calling, about pretty much wanting to better yourself. Don't apologize for it. And in writing that chapter, I was actually going through a transition of no longer feeling sorry for myself, for going through depression, for becoming a mother young and everything that it did. It made me stronger in the end. So I don't apologize for what I've gone through because it helped me to become the woman that I am today.
And with that being said, thank you. One thing that I've learned is God has given us all gifts. And the different gifts that we have in life, a lot of times we shut down.
Yeah.
Or we feel we have to apologize because of what we have already done in terms of maybe I drew something and it came out really nice and maybe yours didn't come out as good. So I will dumb down my gifts to make you feel better rather than appreciating who I am and how I am. And many of you may have had that same experience. You're doing a good job at your work, or there's an assignment that has come your way and you've taken on that project and you've made it your own and you're getting a lot of shine for it, but then you feel guilty. And we cannot feel guilty for being ourselves. We just have to be ourselves. Just like the 16 personality app that we did the test on. That test really revealed a lot and it said a lot about who I am as a person. And many of you had responded back that it was very helpful in seeing who you are, and it was just to help manifest some things that you can be doing in life that you might have questioned. So let's read a portion of the book. We'll start at page 197, and I will allow the author to do her thing. Go ahead and read for me.
All right, so it says, I have no reason to feel bad for being who God has created me to be. Yes, I have flaws, but I have as much right to be my best self as the next person. And if anyone can't get on board with that, then no love is lost, but I wish you well. The funny thing is, I've never done anything wrong that causes me to have to apologize for existing. I choose not to compromise who I am to make others happy. I've tried to change who I am for someone else. And let me tell you, if there was nothing wrong with me before, there was then. I understand if I was this horrible person with no moral respect for herself, yet I've tried to make myself appealing to others to fit into the world. If I could go back in time to my former self, I'd tell her 3 little words. You are enough.
All right, so in chapter 10, one of the things that I noticed you wrote about was talking about you don't apologize for being too eccentric. You're not going to apologize for being too bold. There's no need to apologize for being too spiritual, too exhausted, being independent, being misunderstood. And you're not going to apologize for being unapologetically you.
Right.
That's a point that we have to get to in life. We have to learn to be unapologetic for who we are. We need to learn that we are born a certain way And we can't change who we are just because people say, hey, you need to be different.
Right.
One thing that I learned growing up is that people will tell you or say, oh, I wish you would be more like Johnny, or more like Beth, or more like Kim. But no one says, hey, be yourself.
Yeah.
No one teaches us to be ourselves. Everybody wants to give us some kind of speech about what they don't like about us, but they don't spend the time to help us be us, if that makes sense. So one thing with you guys were growing up, you had gotten into the beauty pageant.
Yeah.
That was something you wanted to try out. I was for it. But as a parent, I did not force you.
That's true.
To do it. When you were ready to quit, even though you was making some change, but when you was ready to quit, that was your decision. Because I'm not going to live vicariously through you.
Right.
You know, I think it's important for each person to have their own identity and to support where we can support or let go where we need to let go.
Yeah.
So, in here, tell us what you meant by just being, you know, if you're being misunderstood, that there's no need to apologize.
So when a lot of us are misunderstood, it's because maybe there's certain things maybe about our personality, or
maybe someone to take time to get to know you.
Right. So a lot of the times what we do is we try to mask that, and they're like, oh, I don't, you know, like if for example, if we're having a good conversation and I'm acting silly, and you're just like, okay, you're doing too much. Now the next time I'm around her, I'm gonna want to calm that down because it now put in my head like, okay, she doesn't like when I do that, but I don't feel good about myself. And
it all depends on how it's done.
Exactly.
If I shut you down in a way that toys with your inner being, then you will approach differently when we come together and we talk. And then I might question, hey, why are you not laughing as much? But I've already set that state of mind to you that, hey, I can't do this when I'm around her. And a lot of times, I don't think it's so much we can't do something. I just think we have to know our limits and our boundaries.
Right.
And we can't take it too personal. Sometimes we take things very personal, and that can have an effect on our relationship and who we are and how we feel. So in some areas, you know, we have to be us, but we just need to know our boundaries.
And I also think it's important to not play victim.
Yeah.
I think that's so important, because we try to change, and then at the end of the day, we're resenting the person who brought it to our attention when all they're doing is either trying to better us, or maybe just in that moment it wasn't the right time to act the way you were, but they didn't mean no harm by it.
Right.
So from then on out, you start playing this victim card, like, but you didn't have to do all that.
Right.
You could have just, you know, and now that you know, you can just say, okay, in certain situations, I just need to bring it down a little bit. I can still be me. Just bring it down a little bit.
Right.
Don't play victim. Just take responsibility.
Yeah. We will play victim.
Yeah, especially if you're a very emotional person.
Yes. I'll
be the first to say it.
Now, but you know, one reason why I brought Jessica on to host with me is because of the fact that, you know, I'm very proud of her course, and she was very transparent in her book. But like I said, I came to that one point because she was a very shy girl, just like myself. I was very self-conscious about how people felt, what people thought about myself, that I never really was me. I never focused on me. And as I got older, losing sight of myself for the wrong reason sometimes is because we're worried about somebody else's perception of us, that after I hit 50, I was like, I don't give a doggone. You know, if somebody feels a certain way, I don't care no more. But I lost so much time in my youth where I should have been that way and cared more about me, you know. And one thing I always wanted to do is press forward and make certain that whatever brick laid a certain way in my life that I did not like, that I made a difference for my daughters. I wanted to make certain that my daughters knew that we did not have to, if you don't want to go, you don't go. You know, I'm not mad at you. And if you want to eat it, eat it. But if you don't, I just want you to taste it so you can't never say you never tried it.
Right.
Because my thing is to just say no and to pull away from things all the time, you'll never experience things in life. So I think it's worth at least trying it. You don't have to finish it, but at least try it.
Right.
And I think the relationship that we were able to build and develop was because I never made you guys apologize for who you were. You know what I'm saying? I didn't like them to say, Mommy, I'm sorry. Don't tell me you're sorry because you're not sorry. That's one thing I did not like. And I can tell you something funny. I never liked anyone instilling nothing in the kid's head. So when Jessica was younger, they had, in preschool, Miss Outing had her singing a song about being a nut. She was in the back of the car. I'm a nut. I'm a nut.
Tearing my
I was
head
like,
up.
What are you talking about? So she wasn't singing a full song. She just kept hitting her head saying she was a nut. And I said, you will not instill that into your mind. I said, where'd you get that from? Oh, we learned it in school. Next day we got to school. I said, listen, I don't want you teaching my baby she's a nut because she's not a nut. No, she's not a nut. Because sometimes the things that we repeat and we put in our spirit, it manifests. So if you can't teach her that she's strong and smart, don't tell her she's a nut.
Yeah.
So from that day forward, my baby never sung that song about being a nut. And it's what we put into ourselves that matters. We have to be very careful about what we put into ourselves. You know, I mentioned in the last series, you know, my dad calling me ugly. Later on, when I was getting married, walking down the aisle, he's like, you are a beautiful bride. I couldn't receive it. Was he being mean? No. He called himself protecting us. He didn't want us to be conceited or feel that we were better than. He just wanted us to know that we were good. Not that we were ugly, but that we were in a good place, that we didn't have to be anything better than where we were. If that makes sense.
Kind of like seeking validation.
Yeah. It's like, you know, you are who you are. And one thing I did, again, with my daughters is I always told them they were beautiful. Like I said, I laid that brick different because I knew how that scarred me. And again, he wasn't being mean. He called himself protecting. But it hurt. You know, hey, I pick up a rock, I threw it. I didn't mean to hurt you. But guess what? My eye's big. Because I got hit with that rock. And that's the thing, that we have to be careful about the words we throw around. We got to be careful about the people that entertain in our life, that we bring in our lives, you know. And we just got to be real careful. So out of today's lesson or session, I want us to take away, the takeaway is, don't apologize for who you are. If you're comfortable in your skin, be in that skin. Don't change for nobody. People are going to come your way, try to force you to change. We don't have to change. If you're happy with who you are, be you. Be true to who you are. Because there's only one you. And there can be only one version of yourself. I don't care if you have a twin. You're never going to be the same. You're never going to be the same. You might look the same, but there's something about you that's a little different.
Grass ain't always greener.
Grass is not always greener. Don't try to be somebody else. Don't try to become more than you need to be. Anything from you that you want to add?
Well, you know, I definitely want to touch on that with social media too.
Yes.
Especially when it comes to parenting, because obviously we're different generations of parenting. But I feel like we're similar in a lot of ways. But when it comes to my boys, for example, if they see something on TV and they may say something negative, you know, even my husband and myself will be like, no, don't repeat that, don't say that. That is not you. You know, or it was one day in particular, and it almost brought me to tears, but in a happy way. My eldest was watching this kind of like hip hop ABC video, and after each letter was like something motivational or inspirational. It was like, hey, I'm ambitious, you know, stuff like that. So, and it got to certain words, he was like, hey, Mommy, am I this? I said, of course you are. Because I want him to
positive affirmation.
Right. And I told, and just because I told him, yes, you are, I made it clear to him that just because Mommy says you are, you need to feel that for yourself.
Yes.
It's not just because Mommy says it. It's because you are.
Self-validation.
Yes. You are powerful. You are amazing. You are
Yes.
brilliant. You are smart. You are caring. This is that and the third. You are sweet. And he was like, "Oh, mommy, am I this?" Yes, you are. But do you believe you are?
Yeah.
And I think that's an important thing that my mom and I did too. Even with my sister Kaylee, we always did that. If we didn't feel a certain way, my mom would shut that down. No.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I don't let no, no. You look good, but let's just do this. Oh, what's the problem? Get down to the problem with your kids. There's no such thing as them just they're over exaggerating. No, they're people too.
And not only your children, with yourself.
Yeah.
Get in that mirror. I promise you. Get in that mirror. Do some self-talk. Build yourself up. Even in the Bible, Even in the Bible, Paul encouraged himself.
Yeah.
He encouraged himself. Regardless, there's always going to be some negative back talk. That inner critic, we got to silence that inner critic. Because a lot of times, if we don't shut it down, nobody else will.
Yeah.
Nobody else will.
And one thing I learned as a life coach is the more, it's a lot easier to put negative in than it is to do positive.
Yes.
Just like how's that saying? It's easier to frown than it is to smile. Something like that.
I don't know.
Either way, it's so easy because the world is so negative.
Yeah.
Even like in today's music and all that stuff, it's so easy to absorb all of that. But like you said, if you could look in the mirror and you heard some music about maybe a breakup or something like that, and now you go to bed, wake up, and now you wondering why you feeling the funk because you let that marinate.
Yeah.
So maybe that next day, each day, write something positive down that you could do throughout the week, and then sit here and tell yourself, I am enough. Yeah. I'm good enough. I deserve love. You have to speak that into yourself. Don't look for anybody else to do it. Okay? Be unapologetically you.
Yeah. And so before we take off, I like to give a challenge each time. And just like Jessica just stated, I want us to take time to write down 5 things. Write down 5 things. Let's take baby steps that you may not care about yourself, and 5 things that you really adore about yourself. And those things that you don't like, let's start taking baby steps towards fixing those things.
Yeah.
If we take the time to fix them, then we can be in a better place. But if we never address those things, it's going to be hard on us. So we got on these same hoodies. There's a cup here. This is a saying from one of Jessica's chapters, chapter 6. And it's like, keep that same energy and be blessed. So what I want to say to you is, when something negative come up, or a negative person, just tell them, keep that same energy and be blessed. Because when God starts blessing, the devil's going to be messing. Thank you for tuning in. Y'all have a good one. Appreciate you.